So today we'll be doing some loose watercolor flowers. So actually this is a challenge for me as well. I'm used to painting really detailed. I can't seem to be painting loosely. Hi everyone! So this is a challenge for me and I hope you'll join me and enjoy it. Because if you've ever checked out my other videos, I tend to paint really detailed, so it takes longer. But there's also beauty in painting loose flowers. You can totally play with your water control. You can play with your colors, make them bleed and bloom with each other. So this time, let's try to both do it. Okay, so I hope you'll enjoy this. And I'm going to flip the camera down, so it's gonna keep flipping, but don't worry, that's just my process. Okay, so I'm gonna flip it down so you can see my desk. Okay, and then I'm gonna, all right, so now it's the right view. Okay, so here we are. Before we start, you just need your watercolor paper. If you like to start smaller, you can always cut it up into smaller pieces. That's what I did. I have a bigger page, and then I cut it up into half. Okay, and then I started with this one. And then later on, you can actually just practice one flower in one whole paper, or you can keep practicing all of them. It's up to you. Okay, so have your paper. This is just 200 GSM paper for practice. So I didn't use my thick, nice paper yet because it's still practice time. I don't want to waste it. Okay, but it's already good for practicing. And then today I'm going to use Zen Art's Allegro. So this set is really great for painting flowers because it has, as you can see, it has a lot of warm and vibrant colors. So this is what I'll be using today. And then your mixing plate will also come in handy. I haven't washed my other ones, but it's good to have several mixing plates. So for this one, I'm also going to use my brushes from the Turner collection, but I'll probably be using just 2 or 3 from this, and probably the round ones. Okay, so for loose floral painting, the good size round brush is really great because you know the belly is thick, so it holds a lot of water and pigment, and the tip is sharp, so you can also do the the nice tips. Okay, and then I also like to have a paper towel ready because that's what I use to absorb excess water and things like that. You can also use it to lift off paint if you feel like it's too wet or there's too much pigment. All right, so and I also like to have a swatch paper, scratch paper ready so that I can test out the colors that I'll be mixing. Okay, so I think we're ready to start. So I'm not going to tape down my paper or anything like that, but when I do tape my paper down, I use this nice tape, Nito tape. It's a Japanese tape for painting. Okay, so let's start. Let's start with the rose. Okay, so I'll challenge myself today and paint a rose loosely as I can. Okay, so put everything to the side. Okay. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll try to answer as best as I can. Okay, and for those of you who are interested, we have a watercolor mixing guide. It has free charts and all for you to test your colors. So just go to our site, Zen Art Supplies, and you'll find our watercolor mixing guide there. Okay, so let's start with the smaller paper. I'll put this to the side. So I actually also like using my extra palettes. I stretch out my paper here too. Okay, so for the rose, I'll start with, let's see, I think crimson would be a good color for this rose. Okay, so crimson is like a cooler kind of red, but more mid-cooler. As you can see, some of the reds are on the warm side and some reds are on the cooler side. So all your primary colors have both a warm and a cool version. So this time I'm going to use crimson. So I'm going to use my nice fat round brush. I think this is a number 11. Okay. So I'm going to prepare. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in so you can see closer. Let's see. Okay, there you go. So just let me know if sometimes I don't realize it. I'm painting off camera, so just let me know. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll first mix a crimson and a deep yellow mix. So this is for the outer layers. Okay, so I'm like muting the yellow the redness a bit for the outer layers. Okay, so since I'm going to be starting in the middle of the rose, I'm going to use a smaller brush first. Okay, so let's use this smaller brush. I think this is a 5. Okay, and I'm just going to get directly from here. So for the rose, the inside part has smaller buds, it's smaller size petals. So we'll start with C-shaped, like overlapping each other. Okay, let's see, it's blurring, so I'm just gonna adjust it. Okay, there you go. So I'm gonna start with the C shape here. So just overlap them on top of each other. So you can see the C's going like this, okay? So just do that. And then I'm gonna start using this now. As you can see, it's a softer red. I added more water. And again, just continue with your overlapping C's. Start with the tip of your brush, press down, and then lift up. Okay? So explore what your brush can do. If you just use the tip, then you can get a fine line. If you press down, then you'll get the fat belly pressing down on your paper. And try to move it around as well so you can vary the shape. And then now I'm going to add even more water. Okay, so as you move outwards, you add water to soften the outer petals. And that gives you a looser kind of rose. So you're not really focusing on, making the flower as realistic as possible. You're just getting the shape, the general shape of the rose. And then I'm just adding a bit of pigment here and there. And if you even want to soften it further, just clean your brush, use clean water, and just add and soften the edges. Okay, so it's up to you. So you can have these more sharp edge, or you can loosen it, go over it with a clean wet brush, and you can soften the edges. So as long as your paper, your paint, they're still wet, it's very easy to do this. You can still do this when it's dry, but it'll be more challenging. So I'm going over it now just to even soften the edges and make it looser. So in just like a few minutes, you're able to make a rose. Okay, so I hope you like that and you can start using it as well. Okay, so now let's go to another flower. Let's do this one with several petals. Okay, so let's, I'm not very good with flowers actually. I won't be able to tell you which kind of flowers specifically they are. I just know a handful of flowers by sight. Okay, but when you're trying to paint loose abstract flowers, you don't really need to paint specific flowers per se. Okay, so now let's go to this one as mentioned. Okay, so I'll use the same color, but I'm gonna use a lighter, less saturated mix. So this is opera rose. As you can see, it's a nice, vibrant, bright pink. So this is a favorite among those who paint flowers. They always have this color, though it's not as light fast as the other colors. Okay, so again, I'm gonna paint, I'm gonna mix here. I'm gonna prepare my mixture. So I'm going to test this out to see if it's the right saturation. Sometimes if I don't swatch it out, I tend to mix them too light or too dark. So this is really useful. Okay, so I think this looks like a nice pale bright pink. Just a little bit more. Okay, so for this one, I don't really plan the number of petals as well. I just go from the center, like this, lift, and then again to the other side, lift. So I try to leave this white space so it adds that extra detail without really going overboard. And just go around. Okay, just like what we did earlier, start with the tip, press down, lift up. So this is the nice thing about round brushes with fat bellies. You can really go far without having to keep on redipping. And while the paint is still wet, I'm going to add more saturated mixture here. And since it's still wet, it's just going to naturally spread from the center and slowly spread outwards. So I'm just dabbing it. So do you like to paint flowers? Is it something that you find yourself painting often? And if you do, what flowers do you like to paint? Okay, so you can see, because it's still wet, wet on wet really gives you that nice blooming. What a perfect word for what we're doing now. So they are just blooming beautifully. And that's the nice thing about watercolors. It's the magic that the water gives you. Okay, so if you feel like some parts you don't like, you can just lift it off. Okay, no worries. Or you can even add extra water to even make it bloom some more, like this. So right now I like this, and I'm gonna allow it to dry. Later I'm gonna add yellow in the middle, but I don't want it to to mix with the bright pink now, so I will wait for it to dry. Now let's go on to our other flowers. I'll set this aside. Okay, I'm gonna use this big paper now. Okay, so just have practice paper for your blooms, and just keep practicing it in different sizes. Okay, so now let's go to this one. Okay, so this is a flower that's not viewed from above but from the side like this. Okay, so I'll be using the same colors I used here. Okay, so for this I mixed vermilion with deep yellow. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get some vermilion. So vermilion is your warm red. As you can see, I'm fond of using the two yellows I have here. I'm running low. Okay, so I'm getting this nice bright orange, and I'm going to use the same method I use. Okay, so starting from here, just lift up, press down, lift, press down, lift. And there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to add just a pure vermilion. Okay, and I'm going to overlap here. Then I'm going to add on the sides. Mix. Okay, so you can just, if you want to darken this part, you can just add again extra pigment. So I like to do this. I add pigment, I add water, and then I just allow it to bleed. So it's the flow of the water gives the natural flow, just gives it that final look. So the thing with loose painting I find is that the less brush strokes you use, the better it comes out. Because if you keep brushing over again and again, it tends to you tend to overwork it. So try to keep your brush strokes down to a minimum, and you'll find that they'll look looser. Okay, now let's go to this one. This is quite similar to here, but I haven't added yet the lines. So that the thing is, for example, when you're done with this, you get your color. For here, I'm going to use scarlet, and I'm going to add lines like this. Okay, so that's the idea. So for this, I have to wait for it to dry. So now let's use yellow like I did here. Okay, let's go with a warmer yellow, gamboge. So gamboge is a really nice warm yellow. It's almost going towards orange. Okay, so again, let's prepare our mix. So it's nice to have a mixing plate with a lot of wells if you're doing a lot of different colors. so that your colors won't get muddied when they touch each other. Okay, so for this one, I'll make it bigger. Okay, it's a bit too light. Let's add more pigment. Okay. So for one petal, I'm doing like 3 strokes. And again, you go around doing that. If you find that you do well, but you're more comfortable doing this with a pre-sketch, then go ahead. You can sketch out the basic shapes and placement. So here I'm just winging it. Thankfully, it looks okay. So same method as before, but this time we used 3 strokes, so they kind of look different. So explore how each brush stroke looks like and what kind of textures or look or effects you can create by playing around with your different brush strokes. So with just one nice good sized round brush, you can do a lot of things. So you don't need to buy 20 brushes to be able to do different techniques. You start with just a good sized round brush, explore it away, and then you can add later on slowly to your collection. Okay, so now let's go, and while we're waiting for these to dry, let's go and do a bud. Okay, so of course not all flowers will be blooming open, so sometimes you also need a bud. So let's do that. So I'm going to use Opera Rose again, but I'm going to start with what's that color? Oh, a yellow deep for the underlayer. Okay, so let's do that. Here, just a washed out lemon yellow. And then I'm going to overlap it with the opera pink. So I'm going to start with a more washed out and then I'm going to go over it with more pigmented. Okay, so there you go. You have your bud. So I'm actually stopping myself from, working it too much. So that's the trick. Try not to overwork it. It's a challenge, especially if you love doing details, but this is a good technique to also explore, painting loosely. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for it to dry before I add the green under later for this as well. Okay, so now let's do a spray of flowers. So sometimes flowers don't come in just one big bloom; they come in a spray like this. So let's do this. Okay. So in this palette, there's also the olive green, which is great for that nice subdued green. So I'm going to mix it with this aureolin green to give it a little bit of boost. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna just paint a long line first. Okay, so that will be my guide to the spray, and then I'm gonna add the stems that branch out. Okay. So once I have that, I can just darken it, and I have to. Okay, and I'm gonna switch to a bit of a smaller brush. So now I'm gonna add the purple, small purple blooms. So for this, I need a bit of a mix because there's a lot. So I use this to get water, so I don't have to keep re-dipping my brush to get water. Okay, so little stuff that help you out. Okay, so I'm gonna, so I have a violet in the palette, but I'm gonna soften the darkness of the violet with some blue. Okay, so I'm going to add cobalt blue beside it, just to give it a warmer purple color. Oh, there. So you can see the purple has softened. Okay, so I like it. I like this purple. Okay, so depending on the blues and reds that you mix together, you will get different kinds of purple. Okay, some purple will have a warmer hue, some a cooler hue. So it's best that you try out how your reds and blues look like when you mix them. Create a color chart of mixing greens, mixing purples, mixing oranges, and play around with your reds and blues and yellows, your primaries, and see what colors you get. So don't forget, we have a color mixing guide that you can check out that has charts that you can print, that you can just, you know, swatch your colors with. Okay, so just little dabs like this. Again, we're trying to paint loosely, so we're not trying to get the nitty-gritty details, just the general look of the flowers. So these represent little blooms. So you have, you can always add another layer later if you feel like it's too light or it's too flat. So no worries. With watercolor, you just do layering. So just little dabs here and there. And let's add here because we want to have that tapering shape. Okay, and there you go. You have a spray of flowers. Easy peasy. Okay, and then after I like to add, darken the green here and there. So I just go over it, and where it peeks out, I just add extra green. Okay, so you can also wait for the paint to dry and do it later. So that's just how you do it. Okay, so, and there's also spray where you just you can just do a spray like this and then just add little dots. Okay. So this also looks great. And then you can even vary the colors that you use. Greens, purples, blues. Okay, so these are done. Just waiting for the next layer. Okay, so for this one, okay, so it has bloomed. So some parts it has bloomed too much, so I can just like lift off some parts if I feel like too much. Just wet it and lift it off with your paper towel. So this is one way of lifting off. You can just use your brush, lift it off, and dab on your paper towel, or you can wet it and then slowly remove it with your paper towel. Okay, so again, it has softened it, so it's not too harsh. Okay, so now I'm going to add the yellow that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to use this really really bright yellow, Drawn Brilliant. We're just going to get directly from the pan and just add it here. Okay, to complete the center of the flower. So I just dab it. And then if I feel like it needs more depth later, I'll just add to it. But for now, just adding this yellow, it just completes it. I like it. Okay, so now let's go to the other ones that we need to add to. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to add the green under. So I'm just going to mix these two greens and just add this. So you can also do this while it's still wet if you like that look where they bleed. So go ahead and do that. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here for this bud. So I'm going to add the green under. There you go. So it looks complete now that it has this green under. Okay, and now I'm going to finish the lines here. Okay, so I'm going to change brushes again. I'm going to use a smaller round brush just so I can get the fine lines. And I'm going to use this color. So this set comes with a swatch card that the colors labeled out. So it's really good to have this whenever you have a new set. It's good to swatch out your colors so you can actually see them, how they look like when they're painted. Okay, so this is Scarlet. So I'm going to use Scarlet to do the lines. Okay, so again from the middle. So you can do as many lines as you can, or you can just do 3 or 4. So just using the tip of the brush. You can also try doing broken lines. That also gives a different effect. Okay, and then for the middle part, I'm also going to add like what I did earlier. But this time with more detail. Okay, so these are our loose flowers. Okay, so if you want to add leaves, you can go ahead just this in the same way that we did the flowers. For example, let's do quick leaves just to finish this off. Okay, so you can do a leaf simply just by the tip and then lift. Okay, so try doing it the opposite way as well. Try going from there and going towards you. So this one, you painted it moving away from you. Now try to do it going towards you, and you also get a different effect. And then you can also paint two separate parts of the leaf and have that natural divide in the middle like this. Okay, so try practicing a different kinds, and before you know it, you're making bouquets of flowers together, or even a wreath. And these are the loose watercolor flowers that we have now. So I hope you learned something from me, and I hope you enjoyed this, and you get to practice your own loose florals. Okay, you might even be doing it in a more loose fashion than me, which is actually great, even better. So this is it. If you have any questions, let me know before I say goodbye to everyone. I'm gonna flip the camera back now so I can say goodbye to you. Okay, so these are our loose flowers that you can practice to make your own cards or bouquets, anything. So do share your works. If you've done this, share it with us. I'd love to see them. And have a great day. Bye.